As you mentioned, the COVID-19 has disrupted our lives, our social, economic, everything. It just really disrupted our lives completely.
Yes.
But it is a gendered pandemic. It impacted women greatly, much more than men, because women make up 70% of the frontliners. 70% of healthcare workers are women. Additionally, 740 million women are in the informal sector. So you can imagine how that impacts their livelihoods, because they're in the informal sector, so they can't reap the benefits of the social protection mechanisms of being in the formal economy. We're calling on G20 leaders to pave the way for an economic recovery that takes into account an equitable economic recovery where women, as equal partners and key economic actors, are part of the solution. So we're not saying, oh, be kind to women. No, it's the only way to ensure an equitable economic recovery is when we include women and when we engage women and address the gendered impact of this pandemic on women. We know women in the MENA region specifically, there is a huge majority of women who are what we call NEETs, not in education, employment, or training. And that's an issue. So this is before the pandemic. The pandemic only exacerbated pre-existing inequalities. So if these women were not in the working in employment or education or training, with the pandemic, this is adding a greater pressure and risk on women, specifically in the region. That we're calling for at the W20 is inclusive decision making. We need to ensure that women are represented at every point of the decision making process. When you look across the world and in the region, we don't have enough women in the decision-making process. We recognize that having, and it goes beyond women on boards, women CEOs, it's really at every point of that decision-making process, are women being represented? Are they part of the committees that put together the recovery plans? We need that gender lens and that diversity in these committees and these teams. We need to ensure that's one thing, inclusive decision making. Another thing is addressing the care economy. We know and we recognize women's roles as caregivers. And because of that, we need to ensure that we have accessible, high quality, affordable care. And the whole care economy is a multiplier. It's really a multiplier. To the region. I think one thing that's worth noting is the Women, Business and the Law report out of the World Bank, which tracks laws that affect women across 190 economies. One of the top 10 economies that improved the most last year, 6 are in the Middle East. Measured and serious will to move in the right direction. There is still much more to be done, and we need to ensure that COVID-19 does not set us back. But we've seen improvement in the MENA region. Saudi Arabia and the UAE were among the biggest ones that did the most improvements globally, enacting reforms in 6 of the 8 areas: women's mobility, sexual harassment, retirement age, economic recovery. It's an interesting region, right? Our region it's a majority of youth. This region has a lot of youth, which have a lot of untapped potential. We know that this region also, even despite this progress and that we see in the Women, Business and the Law report, all over the world, discriminatory laws continue to threaten women's economic security, career growth, and work-life balance. In the Middle East, women have only half the legal rights of men. So there is still an area of improvement, if we can think of it this way.